iPad, so I think I'm audible well.
Yeah. Yes, you are. Oendrila, are you there?
Yes, she's there.
Can you just allow me to share the screen?
You
please?
can. You can.
Who's disabled?
No, you can.
What's your disabled?
You left and you rejoined. That's why. Okay.
Ritaji, welcome.
Yes, I'm there, Professor Chakraborty.
Okay.
Namaskar.
I think I can't share it, but I'll make a last try. And PowerPoint, Manish Chakraborty.
I can see Shubhendu, I can see Halda.
Good to see you.
Good evening, sir.
Namaskar.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can.
So I welcome everybody who are there joined together today. This is going to be a very brief presentation, but a very important presentation in terms of the whole idea of architecture and the study of architecture, the education of architecture, because there's all kinds of understanding a student at this point of time takes while choosing his or her own desire and ambition and dreams to pursue it. And often we found that many people are rather confused of where and how and which to take, but it's directed towards that. And therefore we felt to have with us today an architect of repute from Calcutta, I would say nationally reputed architect, Vivek Rathore, and also students and teachers of schools, both from school level as well as from undergraduate level, and some of us who are the academicians. I start with the participants. Joydeep Shomadar is a final year student of BArch. He's from Sharda University, Noida. So he took a plunge from Calcutta to go all the way to Sharda University to study architecture. Nandini was a student of mine at Amity University in 2020. He just passed out. She just passed out and started doing her master's in NIT Patna. And that's me, Manish Chakraborty. I am heading a new school of architecture, which was born 2 years ago. And I'm heading the School of Architecture, and we have also included planning in the sister Nivedita University. And I have my colleague Shubhendu Das, heads a very important national practice called in Calcutta called Edifice, and he's our very cherished visiting professor at our School of Architecture at sister Nivedita University. And we have Rita Chatterjee, whom I know for quite a number of years now. Was an alumnus of Loreto College and a master's in English from Calcutta University. And she's been very passionate about teaching. I've seen her, the way she deals with her students and the way she kind of make them come up with whatever creative pursuits each and every student has. She tries to give vent to that. A great believer in hard work and honesty. She always had a myriad range of interests, starting from literature not to mention architecture, of course, though her biodata doesn't read architecture, but still, I think I've seen, we have discussed architecture in private occasions. Ms. Chatterjee has spent more than 30 years as an educator, as a teacher, and administrator. She was the former administrator and principal of FGS Schools, and currently she's the director of North Point Senior Secondary Boarding Schools. And we have welcomed Vivek. Vivek, with your permission, I know that you have been traveling, and you will be traveling from tomorrow also. So I picked it up from your website. Vivek is a very dear friend of many of us, and a very sensitive architect who has been practicing from Kolkata, in Kolkata and beyond Kolkata, in different parts of India. And Vivek has been running a multidisciplinary design studio called Salient, and his vision to evolve the new age value system in Indian design environment. He passed from IIT Roorkee with a gold medal in the year 2000 and established the studio in 2005. His team is supported by his partner and landscape principal, Anuradha, a very dear friend of mine as well, and many associates and quite a number of people working in his office. He calls himself the studio, which I think is a direct translation of a school studio to a practice studio. And I think that makes a lot of story, tells you a lot of things. That a studio is something that you spend a huge amount of time trying to design. And he works in architecture, interior design, landscape, and product design. And some of his cherished projects, which we have seen while passing through the streets of Calcutta, Swabhumi, Prana, EcoSpace, which we actively engage and use them. So I felt that Vivek needed this little bit of introduction because he couldn't actually put together so that's the little introduction. I now leave this forum to my colleague, my dear friend, Shubhendu Dash, who would kind of take you through the proceedings. It will be a kind of a discourse and discussions, and those who are participating in this those who are participating in this talk, I would like them to also participate. Maybe after a critical amount of discussion takes place amongst the people who are gathered here, and then open it up to the public. So I request Shubhendu to take it on, the rest of the proceedings, and then I will perhaps, if Shubhendu puts me some questions after some opening remarks, over to Shubhendu.
Thank you, Manishta. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Manishta, again. And I would like to welcome Vivek and Principal Chatterjee for sparing their time on a Sunday and come to discuss on a very important topic, because this is the time where students are graduating from high school and are looking for career choices. And things have gradually changed in our country. Traditionally, choices such as technology and commerce and medicine was the ones that we usually had. But slowly students are looking at alternative careers, architecture, fashion, product design. These are emerging, and architecture always was. But it's given the fact that India is growing tremendously now, I think these are choices that one has. We also have Jaideep and Nalini, who's going to share their inputs with us, and maybe share their experiences as students. They are recent students, they are graduating, or let's say almost at the verge of graduating and entering the job market. So Vivek, hi. I mean, we met several times, I think, in different occasions, in conferences, and we also shared the same building. At one point of time, I was at a lower floor than you were, but then it's good to have you here. So I think it's best to start with you. I think Manishta has very well given a description of your studio, and we all look up to your practice, and I think you're playing a very relevant work in the context of the city and beyond. in West Bengal. So I think, for a start, if you let the general audience today, I think a lot of them may be comprising of aspiring, students who is not yet in the field of architecture, but maybe, aspiring to be one. And if you can just give us a general overview of what your idea is about architecture and how you, as a student, how you came up to study architecture and your experiences. I think that would be a nice tone to start with. And then over the course, we'll get into more discussions.
Okay, namaskar. Very happy to see the panel, but I will be a little more happy to see the faces. I am not very used to give those whatever the icons there and nothing being seen. So it looks like quite a lifeless screen. And if we can do this thing alive, it just keeps us all ticking. At least if not the body language, at least the camera language would be better. Okay, so welcome you all. I was scheduled to give a little small bit of presentation about our studio, but Manisha showed you a little bit of a website. It's ACT called Studio. So first here, and I really want to invite if there are any faculties in this forum. It's very important that we set the example to inspire the people around us. And I think the ground starts from the institute. I'll starting the place before and after, but I can tell you the storyline starts essentially when you take a decision to pursue a creative career. So I think what architecture is all about, it's like, it's kind of jack of all. So you learn to do everything. And that is interesting about architecture. So first, let us get it right. What architecture is not one track or one specific study. It's a huge, it's like you do everything, maybe a bit or more, that's up to you, but you kind of cover everything, the bandwidth. So you don't die, the career does not die. Whenever think that, I don't want to do this, you end up doing something else. And that's more interesting about architecture. Sorry?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. But
Yeah,
please,
there's some background noises.
the rest of the people unmute yourself so that the speaker is more audible. And secondly, please put your videos on if you do not have much of a problem with your connectivity.
Yeah, it's a casual Sunday, so let's be all in. And I like this informal engagement rather than a very formal talk. So we want to treat it a little informally, so that's okay. The interesting part is because you actually touch so many spheres, as I use the word jack of all, and it's nothing negative to say that we become jack of all, and that's interesting about architecture because any two projects are not the same. And when you start doing the same project, you're dead. So you want to do something and you want to go through the entire cycle of learning and reinventing. And that's what you come across. Example, if you're doing a museum, you would go by the cycle of understanding the subject, almost engaging in the subject, like some would write a thesis on it, and then of course put your sensitivity, layout of space and all the stuff. But idea is that a museum can be completely different than a hospital, to do with residential, to do with any mixed use development for sale. And that is an interesting part of it. But more than that, as I told you, the architecture as a career would never die. And that is the interesting part I see, that what do I do if I don't want to do architecture? I said, I will do so many things. I'll go on and do photography. Okay, I'll go and make sculpture, art maybe. Or we'll design light fixtures, product design. I've landed in doing furniture design. Or so many other factors. If I make a list of more than 50 or 60, absolutely like an impromptu, we can just list it down. Now, the other part is, how do you really pursue a good learning of architecture is what I think is sensitive about understanding before you develop. The process of learning in architecture is about sensitizing yourself, observing the world around you, admiring and questioning together parallelly. And this is what a good institute or a good apprentice or a good student pursues. He is observant and he's also questioning himself. And that builds various strata of your knowledge. And this is becoming like a sedimental filter. Anything comes out, it becomes brilliant. You know the sedimental filter or the composite filter, it has got beds, gravel, sand, so much of stuff. And you put whatever you want on top, fantastic stuff comes out, the good water to drink, for example. Now, I'm just giving you a little idea. This multi-bed personality is something which a good architect or architecture actually allows you. So I've seen so many people, and in fact, to mention, many of us think that no, architects don't run a good construction company. And if you have heard of Turner India, just to give you, Turner is a company which is that Statue of Unity, which you see. Turner India is a PMC chief of. He's a chief of Turner, the gentleman called Jairam, and he's an architect. Now, the architect handles the entire PMC to the level that it becomes #1 in the country. Kind of. Now, so it takes you a completely different league of understanding what's a huge bandwidth of an architect can be. From managing numbers.
Right.
I've seen, Mr. Day, Indranil Day, if he can just mute himself, it would be good, or the host can just take the lead, possibly. So this is brilliant part of the architecture is all about. That, as I tell you, it does not die, and it reinvents into when it goes to an end. So what happens is, architecture is not one track, it's multi-track, and that gives India a very interesting way of looking at it. You know what Indians are about? We are multi-track. And I understand that these people are, we are mostly from Bengal, but still I keep myself with English. You see Indian thali, you eat all of it. It's like 32 stuffs all laid out like a thali. Eat the way you want to eat. And that is the chatpata rice and all the stuff, spices, papad, mishti and all the stuff, everything all together. And Manish Da will eat the way he wants to do it. Shubhendu will eat the way it is. Haldar will eat the way she wants it. So everybody will reinvent his own way to do it. And that's what the thali is, architecture, and that's the kind of personality you become. And that's brilliant. You can permute yourself to so many combinations for the careers. And this is what I'm trying to say, the strength of architecture as a career option. Now, when we started, we named our company called Salient. A lot of people think that why it's Salient and things like this, but it was an acronym. Studio for Architecture, Landscape, Interior, and Enterprise. The word enterprise was very exciting. Enterprising is like, I can do everything. And that's the interesting part of the enterprise is. And from there, the stuff came like, it's going to be studio. Why studio? Because we're going to mingle. It's not one man stuff. It's going to be exchange. It's going to be participation. It's going to be deliberations. And there where we have so many people coming as critics. And to tell you, a gardener would come as a critic of architecture. We'll show him an elevation with a tree and he'll say, in Bengali, he said, it is Boschena. Now, what is Boschena? I'm really wondered, the tree is not sitting with the building or the building is not tree is sitting. And so the two guys are sitting, the architect and landscape architect, which is not sitting with each other, who has done a mistake. And the gardener would feel, and the gardener would be a simple man who has walked on barefoot, walking in the soil. So you see, people, this is what architecture is interesting about. Economists would come and give me numbers of saying mixed use development. This is like, everything is fine, design is okay, but how do you make the numbers grow more? Because if the mall, let's say city centers, would not be doing up one of the largest mixed use development of Eastern India, that would be done by this year end. It's Patna. And fortunately, unfortunately, it has gone through a cycle. I said fortunately, let me correct it. Fortunately, it's gone through a life cycle of 14 years. And it has evolved more than 5 times. So you can understand, this is the great strength of doing architecture. It does not die. Even a concept does not die. A plan does not die. It has to reinvent. And if you add frustration to it, your creativity is gone. But if you enjoy reinventing, and because I told you, it's thali, so it doesn't matter much. We still were eating thali. We still eat the thali. The only point is just you may just choose not to, a little spicy or a little vegan thali if you want to choose. Something like that stuff has come. That thali is thali. It's ever green and fantastic. So the brilliant part of careers as an architecture is this. Now look at what we do. We try to evolve what brilliant India was. Our new institutes, and why I'm harping it out, because this is formulated by this panel is also constituting essentially people from Sister Nivedita University, that university or colleges today don't teach the way Indian architecture grew. Look at what the Indian architecture was. Absolutely brilliant. I have got a lot of pictures. I don't know how to share it, but I will pass on to Manishda. He will give it to the panel eventually. So in a recent research project that we're doing, some project that it's competition that we got and doing in Madhya Pradesh for the tourist government of Madhya Pradesh tourism. And if you know the word called Advait, it's a spiritual word, Adi Shankaracharya. So it's it's a large museum that needs to be done with a lot of research. And in that perspective, when we studied the various temples, it's absolutely brilliant the way architecture was resilient and sustainable both earlier. With some same material, they would make architecture, structure, culture, storytelling, artist and collaboration would be there, and they would have seismic details worked out so brilliantly that even today's structural engineers would not be able to do that. And with just one material, the local stuff. And if the people have visited Vishnupur, they will understand that 400 to 600 years old temple are there. So many earthquakes, so many whatsoever must have come. They're pretty good in shape, and they're still inspiring us. What I want to say is our course material, and this is where it's a suggestion and an inspiration also to the university, that architecture starts not in the institute, it starts much ahead. When we are grown, when we are schooling ourselves, when you're visiting, what you're appreciating is adding to your career. So you are building up architecture from the very beginning in your life. Small bit of it. Every time you travel, you appreciate you're building architecture, whether it's ecology or building. And this is what the career, imagine your love and affection for a particular thing becomes your profession. Brilliant, absolutely. And the interesting part is I often see a frustrated architect. I don't see a frustrated architect, sorry. I see a guy who when the client is forcing him to change, and when he's meeting the numbers, he gets frustrated. But if he enjoys the change, he is an Indian. In India, we enjoy change organically. Just imagine, I was sitting with Doshiji long back, and some housing, and I said, look at the way people are putting up kapda sukha de rahe hain, Doshiji, and dekhiye balcony mein, they would have better. He said, oh, that's so brilliant. They're dotting it with identity. Look at that. And that evolves. And that is an evolution. Look at the way the evolution is happening all around. People are changing, and this change is your learning also. Next time. Now, this exchange, which is alive, happens in design. And architecture is a mother of all design. We often say cinema is the mother of all arts. I can say architecture is the mother of all design. If you can say, okay, if you don't mind mother, you can say father, mother, both. That's okay with you. But we say mother because she gives birth to that. So that's what it is. So this is brilliant part of it. And I see the kind of faculties at a particular project, we have about 63 different specialist consultants, and exchange between them is making every bit of it alive. Well, as I told you, our studio, just a little bit of our studio. Our studio is basically having 4 or 5 disciplines, and we have engaged in we purposely don't want to do one type. Our idea is not to be, we want to make our approach neurogeneric. The way it comes and it has various heads, a neuron, 5 heads, and then again goes there and becomes 5 heads, it's going neurogeneric. So let it be neurogeneric in a practice and not be one typology. And there was a nice good career exchange long back, and kuch kaam aisa karo, even if you don't get money, you would still do it, and that's your love. Live the life you love and love the life you live. And this is what I keep on telling in the studio. This is where if you love it, do it. You'll keep on growing and enjoying it. And architecture gives lots and lots of satisfaction. In fact, sitting with sometime with Ravi Shankar and people like that. Even every field of design or every field of invention or creativity would have. But architecture is something that you would really need to do with so many people, so much of talent around you, so much of variety, and so much of innovation to appreciate and admire. Such wonderful stuff. So we want to create this studio act, which every studio act alive, young, bubbling, challenging, criticizing, reinventing. A housing scheme, for example, we can reinvent a housing scheme more than 18 to 19 times. We scrap a design, throw it all, request the client, will take another 15 days. Scrap it all. He says, we are okay with it. No, I'm not okay. Let's reinvent it. Okay, till the time he says, now I'm not going to pay you the money. Okay, that's fine. This is what it is. Now, this is not a professional advice. This is not maybe a great stuff. But what I'm saying is, it gives a studio act, everybody needs to be participating, exchanging. And that is where interesting is. Clients become a part of it. They exchange, not just instruct or see a presentation, they exchange. They come with a point. They come with, give me 5 points. Ask your driver 5 points. Ask your staff 5 points. Everybody participates. And then that's the way you make a great stuff together. And that's the strength of a good studio or good option of a career, architecture. So I will keep on asking. Please prompt me. So if Shubhendu, if you can keep on prompting me, and I don't go much away, you can keep on asking me.
Yeah, Shubhendu, if we can get into opening remarks, it was fantastic. For all the participants before.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, thanks, Vivek. I think, to start with, some of the key things that you said, I think, are very important for an aspiring architect to understand, things like resilience. One has to be resilient, basically, when you become an architect, because change is constant in our field. And I think, it's a very fundamental course in the course of architecture. It actually prepares you for a lot of other things, like the thali you mentioned. You can be out there, and kind of enjoy the thali in very different ways. I think that's the beauty of our course. I think, as Manisha said, we would like to have more opening remarks now from the other participants, and it has to be more of a collaborative platform for people to understand what our field is. So at this point, I think I would like to bring in Principal Chatterjee. And I think we're glad that she's agreed to come and join this panel, because we want to understand, from, the perspective of young students, who are venturing out, students especially who are in, senior secondary school. So Principal Chatterjee, if you could just, share your ideas about, what you think.
Sure. First of all, Manish, thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm so happy to be with the likes of Mr. Rathore, and it was absolutely enchanting listening to him. And whilst I was listening to him, I was wishing and hoping that people like Mr. Rathore and Manish at university with your architectural team would visit school. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Am I audible?
You are.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
Would visit. Thank you. Would visit schools, because what is happening with children today is they need this positive feed from senior people like you, that they know that there is a lot of hope for them in the future. Because see, what is happening is when the children are studying, say typically the science combination of subjects, and then they wonder that, what after this? What if we don't get into our choice of subject combinations that we are looking at? So they should know that there's so much that they can do with their qualification in the science subject, and they can go into architecture. In fact, there are children who are actually interested in a lot of entrepreneurial work, and therefore the idea of being able to earn quickly is very much in their mind, because they can see that society is showing the students that there is a lot of demand in society, and therefore they should be able to fill in the space. So I quite enjoyed the enthusiasm of Mr. Rathore, Shubhendu, and Manish in this. And yes, for career counseling, I think it's brilliant, and you must reach out to schools, and we should have more sessions like this, wherein children understand that there is a lot of scope for them.
Right. Right.
Thank you. I think it's good to know that we are all on the same page, and it's good that we can connect at this level. So that there has to be this cross exchange of feedback to students, and we can encourage students to take up with more sessions like this, fields such as architecture and more related fields, likewise.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I just wanted to know, Principal Chatterjee, is when students, I mean, how do you deal with students, when they actually come for career advice, to you all? I mean, what directions do you generally give when somebody is not decided, and they want to do something, especially, like you mentioned, the students want to be enterprising these days, and they want to be in the field of, so how do you actually, deal with such conditions?
Yeah, we have seen now that students, when they finish their class 10th, or when they are doing their class 10th, the idea of what career they should take up according to their aptitude is already, bubbling in their minds. So when they come and discuss with us, we try and put them on to career counseling people who can actually give them the best advice. Because it's not only the aptitude, it's also the attitude of the child that will make a big difference into whatever field the child chooses. Like Mr. Rathore said, if you can make your passion your living, nothing like it. So, I've been one of the few lucky ones. My passion was teaching, as Manish said, and I was able to do it. So I enjoyed teaching. But today, when we talk to children, we see that they are keen to go into fields from where they can, start instantly being a dignified member in society, where they'll be able to contribute to the family. So therefore, if we can think of universities coming in and talking to the children and giving them career options where they can be market ready, I think would be wonderful. And that's what we are actually trying. So in the field of, AI is a big field now, and a lot of children are working at it. And thanks to the technology that has come around in schools also, we tell them to, as an experiment, before I came into this, we had given them an option that if you want to style your school differently, what would you do and why? And we had some wonderful ideas coming from them. And management in North Point has decided to use those ideas. So, and senior people like you, we'd welcome you to schools. I would welcome you to schools.
Thank you so much for your insight. Coming to Nalini and Jaideep, I think they're again key participants in today's discussions, and we'll start with Nandini. Nandini, so as we all understand that you are a master's student, you graduated, you've been a student of Manish Da, and I'm sure you've got some amazing experience, studying under him. So why don't you share with us? And I think we'll take it to the next level. Once you share your experiences, I think that you would pose some questions to Vivek, because you don't get such opportunities, right? Where we get to have Vivek, and then you get to have students.
You can be frank.
You
can be extremely frank about.
Let's take the opportunity to
Which you are, I know.
Yeah. So go ahead,
Fortunately,
Nandini.
this is the second time I'm interacting with Architect Rathore, and he has been my thesis jury. And we had a very nice verbal discourse over my design. So it was a big pleasure to have him criticize my design, and now I'm sitting with him out here talking. So I did my architecture from Amity University, Kolkata, Amity School of Architecture and Planning. Unfortunately, Manish sir was there for a very short while, but I had a lot of interactions with him. Like he had done the restoration work of St. James Church, and sir and I had a lot of time.
The canteen and the tea stalls.
Yes, we're actually sitting in the stalls outside Amity and we were discussing that. So sir has guided me a lot in that way, and he has been very happy in sharing his experiences, and time and again I have been able to reach out to him, and he has helped me. So the experience which I've had in Amity under him was actually very nice, and it has enriched me as a person, not only just in my career but also as a person. I feel that I'm more adept at taking on more challenges in this career and in my academics right now.
Right. Nandini, you sounded, because I'm here, that your entire experience of doing architecture was centered around Manish. It should not be so. I think, what we would love to hear, and a very frank opinion, and, you've gone through this whole 5 years of, teaching, and, your happiness, your frustrations, your, all those things actually, everything makes you more understanding of the life and living that we are surrounded with. And that also has an impact on whatever you do. As Rathore said, if your, passion becomes your profession, that is the best thing one can have. Everybody may not be on that line of progression of one's life, but we would like to hear more in the later remarks when we open up and we discuss shorter arguments and discussions, maybe on that line. So if you can think on a larger perspective of what architecture education should be, and how it should be, and how it should not be, whether we should actually follow and run to finish our syllabus instead of doing what needs doing, and so is syllabus is predicament or things like that to real understanding, how that can be kind of overcome, if at all, right? And things like that. That will be very interesting to perhaps. So I would request you to ponder on those lines as well. And you can, Shubhendu, I took a little bit of your thing. And
absolutely all right.
Yeah, and yeah, please continue. I would leave this thought for everybody to think about, particularly the students. Yeah.
So and then coming to Jaideep, I think Jaideep is an undergrad student. So he's, I think, right now doing his thesis, and he had the chance of interning with me. So I know about him. He's quite talented. And he's gone all the way to Sharda University in Noida to study architecture. I think, one of the key reasons is obviously, our state has fewer schools of architecture than other states have. And we now have more opportunities coming up. So Jaideep, if you can, and I think, we'll go ahead and have more discourses, but, give the audience, today, about a very brief outline about what you are studying, and what are your experiences about, studying architecture, mostly about your travels that you've done. I heard that, when you started at Sharda University, you guys traveled abroad, and all of those, if you can just give an idea, because that will help aspiring students to get, get inspiration, to, understand, that architecture study is a very interesting one,
Okay, thank you, sir, for having me. For my 4th year, I actually did an intern under sir in Edifice Kolkata. It was like an amazing experience. I kind of got into architecture. I wanted to do architecture since I was in class 10. So my local Durga Puja pandals and all, right? I was helping, when I was small, I used to help them make it, right? So from there, slowly, I got into first I got into, I started playing architecture games, right? And then finally after class 12, I thought about finally, going into architecture. So while our first year as in our school, it was like an experiment that was conducted with our batch. is that our studio, like an entire semester, whatever we studied, we did it while traveling. So we went through Spain and France. So our design studios and Italy, our design studios were basically on the streets of these cities. So like you go up a hill, like I'm just giving you an example. So when you go up a hill in Rome, and like you can actually identify where the residential buildings are and where the plazas are. So like for example, in Florence, you have those high, like you have the churches, and in the shadows of the churches are the residential buildings, right? So that is how the city is planned and all. So we learned all these things over there, like on the streets. We did a lot of documentation work of how the urban, like we did an urban analysis, and we learned all these like urban aspects in first year itself, which kind of elevated, at least I feel, my thought of what architecture like should be, and how it is so much different now that I see it in India. So yeah, it was an amazing experience in the first year. All my so from that point, all my projects that I kind of did in my colleges, I thought it would be better for me to kind of experiment with like different aspects, right? Second year, actually, we had a studio for parametrics, and I from there on I went deep into it year after year on parametrics. About like we have this very bad, like a different notion of what parametrics is, right? Whenever we think of parametric architecture, we think of weird weird forms and all. You have things coming out of the building, going out of place, but that is not really what parametric is. Anything is a parameter, like rain can be a parameter, shadow can be a parameter. Um, what can I say? People can be a parameter, right? So, like I don't like very out of place buildings. I like contextual buildings and all, but I am very interested in how parametrics deals with buildings. So from second year to third year onwards, most of my projects I try to kind of mix a little bit of parametrics with them. So and finally in my thesis, very ironically, I am doing my thesis on adaptive reuse. So
Why ironic?
sir.
Why did you say ironic?
Sir, because like all throughout my architecture like years, I did a lot of parametric and form finding, and
Right.
like I did a lot of form finding exercises all throughout my. So ultimately, so sir, like in my fourth year, when
I think
did
what
my-
Jaideep is trying to say is he's been finding forms all throughout, and then he had to fit something within a form because he is doing
Right.
adaptive reuse. I think.
Right.
I think that's why he says
Right.
ironic. So I think
Right.
so.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Jaideep.
sir, like
Yeah.
I actually got my inspiration from thesis from one of Shubhendu sir's work only. Like he has done this work in Raspberry Street for the Dabur HQ in Kolkata. So it's like I really like the concept of adaptive reuse and how sir was dealing with all the furnitures and everything. So like I am currently trying to do my thesis, and like I put a twist to the adaptive reuse. So it's essentially adaptive reuse for this recent culture of hip hop and all. So like industrial buildings are generally becoming the hub where people who are into this street culture go and practice. So that is what I'm trying to do for my thesis. Very ironical to what I did all.
Excellent. Thanks, Jaideep. I think you've given us a very nice let's say description of what you're doing and what you've done through your previous sessions, your your previous, first year or second year, you went to Spain and Italy, and you've understood how the, urban formats were in Europe, and you got to apply those in your design. So Vivek, what do you think? I mean, I think very interesting ways, the education has evolved, but I think critically what you really said, was very important, that, our Indian, traditional knowledge that we have, and you mentioned Vishnupur, you mentioned all those are very, very, rich, I would say. And there's a lot of things to learn. Do you think we are doing enough, or you think, what advice do you have to kind of, let's say, work on the courses, and, how do we kind of deal with this?
Yeah, it's a good exchange. Jaideep, what you kind of summed, what happened is you made your life more contextual towards the end. Your education became more contextual. See, just to take a step from the end, what Jaideep did was, he made, in India, when a culture is very rich and it's gone for years and years and years, I don't need to tell you that we have active documentation of 32,000 years old history in India. Our Nat Geo and Discovery would lay down to 5,600 to 6,300, but 32,000 years old. And in the recent studies conducted with scientists of NASA, and I can give you exact names. Offhand, it's not just I'm just coming there, but recent book and things like that. We are just studying their books. They have also laid down that Indian history can be very well traced. 12,865 years old, precisely traced by numbers. So just imagine, when you have such a brilliant piece of history, you have done all the matrices. All that you need to do is adaptive reuse. What I'm saying is, see, this is something so brilliant. If you can get the understanding that architecture is not laid down in building, but it's laid down in the entire world around us. If you bigger world of civilization, if you lay it, and who else can be the bigger university than an older civilization?
Absolutely.
Now, this is where also what is the way? I think the first way to go about by their course of material is, before that, I think I'll just say one thing. What do you do with a life? You want to make a meaning to the world around you. Either you can be the consumption guy, or you can be the contribution guy. Right? Either you can consume, or you can think of contributing. What I'm saying is, मैं or hum dena hai, mujhe dena hai. I am supposed to contribute. So if the meaning of life becomes when you realize that, oh, that's the level of contribution I can do in the fabric of the world around us. Correct? Otherwise, every job has two parameters: is efficiency of work and the money that I get. Okay, not job satisfaction, everything, but essentially this is what it comes. But do not look at a career. This career is a very shallow word for me to look at architecture. The meaning of you can the best come out if you look at what architecture does to you. Because it's not a single dimensional design, it's in career or studies, it's a multidimensional, as I use the word neurogeneric. So this brings the bigger picture to us. What example Manishda is doing right now, or Shubhrendru, if I'm not wrong, R is there. If what you are trying to do as a visiting faculty is because you are passing down the entire learning of your life, not the education of the buildings, etc. You must be talking so many other dimensions, because the way architects don't go by book. And I do not agree the way Western architecture is still breeding architecture. You cannot study a Western world architecture and see that this is the fabric of India and I'm going to apply that. No, that's not happening. You have to be Laurie Becker. You understand that, you have to understand that the essence of I'm giving a name. The very first thing that happens in Indian architecture is, go to look at the history of Indian design architecture. You will not have a single name of an architect laid down in a building. Who made this building? So go to Helibed, Go to Ellora. Who has made the building? Where is the king's name? Where is the name, the architect name? Oh, we don't know. Why? The two oldest civilizations, Chinese and India, they don't bear. Because they know that we are all evolving into different combinations. हम सिर्फ combination ही change करते हैं, हम कुछ नया नहीं. We discover. The word is discovery. What was existing, I only discovered it. And then you don't own discovery, you enjoy discovery. So, the great part of learning is if you discover, you don't say, this is my patent, this is me. You finished. India never had patent. Did you ever see this book was written by whom? Tell me Upanishads, the poet name is written, or the Bhashyas. I'm just giving you the name, Bhashya. This is my name. No, so many Bhashyas have been written. Bhashyas are basically commentaries on the various knowledge. Physics, I can tell you, just one name, if you know, Surya Skandam, your school, Surya Skanda. It was taught in schools, the knowledge of sun and energy. And the architect and the student knew how to enjoy sun or to learn about sun before even not in architecture, school time. I educated myself in a school called Don Bosco Lilua. And at that time, Lilua had a great thing, and this is where for Rita Di to understand that, they taught something called fretwork, woodwork, metalwork. And we had got 2 days of holidays. And I can tell you 9 of us friends, we didn't take a single holiday in our life. I can tell you not a single holiday till somebody forced us to take a holiday. We always were there either in working on the drill or in woodwork. So by the end of class 9, we had already made Eiffel Tower of a height of 2.1 meter, full detail in wood. We had made Taj Mahal, already finished. And what was the breeding? It starts from the school. If the school is saying that, oh, I have counselors, I will counsel you for career. No, sir. Give them a platform where they can experiment themselves. Give them platforms, give them breeding grounds, give them fertility on the soil, and you will see, wo beej hai, aap sirf mali ho. Beej mein hi sab gun hai. Aap kya kar sakte ho? I hope I'm able to make you understand and you're following me what I'm saying. Aap sirf surface mein pani dal ke.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. Give it to the children and they'll do it for you. 100% right.
अब उस बीज को पूर्णानित करने में, I'm sorry, I'll put it down to germinate. That's what he's going to find his enjoyment, and that is the career of a school was. So the good teacher observes in a cycle of 10 years, this guy has this particular DNA or aptitude, and a good counselor or a good identifies this one and slowly directs him to the great contribution that because only then he will make a meaning to his life and a meaning to the society as a country as a whole, or mankind as a whole. This is the big picture that we have to now concentrate. And this is like, it is not pulling people into architecture or let's say engineering. I say all engineering is architecture, all architecture is engineering. Where is the confusion? I don't see, because you engineer anyway in architecture too. So while engineering is about numbers, architecture is first about imagination and sensitizing. So, I can just give a Sthapatya in the old architecture book. It was said that architect has to live in the place in 3 seasons of a year before he or she starts designing. That is Sthapatya Granth. He or she lives there. So not only that night and day, 2 cycles of life, but he lives there for some time to feel sensitive. Where does the squirrel go? If I do, am I not breaking the barriers of vision for a gram? Or am I not disturbing the wind from this plot to the other plot? I'm not realizing, I'm just saying wind comes there, sun comes there. We still teach the same thing. Now, what I would request, one more thing, when we come down to our education, formal education of architecture, I will still say, please, Jaideep, take more trips and make more trips to your country and see how sensitive they were doing and such brilliant. I can tell you, at some point, I had an international architect as my external guide also. But I can tell you, there's no experience of discovering India. It is not the tourism that I'm bothering about. How we made small things and how we didn't make, when to make, when not to make. such a wonderful discovery of yourself that you do in architecture. Wow. Suddenly some people, they can take a decision that, oh, after all these things, he takes a decision, I'm going to be a cartoonist. I know so many architects. They finally say that, oh, he has a humor of enjoying, so I become a cartoonist. And then all the while he studied all these things just to make funny things all around. He said, yeah, fun is a part of life. So he becomes a cartoonist. I know so many people who become, just saying, while I was photographing, I really enjoyed the jewelry in the sculptures, and I became a jewelry designer. So that guy finished architecture, became a jewelry designer. And he's so brilliant, absolutely brilliant. No way, because he's able to discover, because what foundations of architecture are so brilliant that he is able to discover. The sense of discovery is the seed doki ek institute mein dal dete. So an institute, formal 5 years of training should be observing, admiring, and precipitating. So when we finish the cycle and then you send to bigger picture, oh, I want to become bigger picture, you've done the job. And first, the important part is when Western we say this guy stands by his name and takes wears black clothes and takes a photograph and says, stand by the building and say, I have done this building. In India, we don't even bother because we say the building is not me. I've only accrued, collaborated, corroborated my inputs of the world around me. And I do not represent this. It's my accrusion, my sensitivity. That's all. Who has invented roti? Dal bhat ke koreche. Who was the founder of khichdi? I really don't know. You don't bother. It's such a wonderful thing. Every time you want to get your digestion perfectly fine, you eat khichdi. So what I'm trying to tell you is, even a khichdi, you don't need to plague it with identity. That's the Western guys that does it. And the sense of contribution in the world around makes a different meaning. This big picture is the excitement of all. Whenever we do the thesis, the moment you come to the world, suppose he's doing adaptive reuse. I can tell you, since he said adaptive reuse. So for us, Swabhumi was one of the adaptive reuse projects that we did, and it was like very difficult to convince because this is not an institution project. It's a project when the guy wants to make money also, and there were numbers, and ultimately we were left down to say we cannot afford this. Whatever this is not affordable. I said, but it's going to work. I said, no, how can it's going to work? But it's going to work. Why? Because this is timeless. And what is timeless? Start defining. Now, how things become difficult from an intelligent client to explain the word timeless, and he argues with money. And that's what we made. We made mathematics. And so we said, okay, we'll give you the full year projection of how much money will you make. That brings us to economy, financial projections, viability. And that was exciting about it because you were not restricted to one dimension of space making. You were making why I am making the space. Why? So the big picture, why in architecture becomes so very, very strong that by the end of your life, this why becomes very important. And this is the strength of this why. Otherwise, when you make a software, you just make a software and you just upgrade. Somebody's upgrading the software for you. And when you leave this building, you don't upgrade the building upgrades by itself. Patina, that's called patina of life. Right. It comes on the thing. And when you see that stuff and then you say, wow, this is so brilliant. And look at the temple towns in the country. Look at the discipline they have. Why they have, just giving you another example, it's how scientific the way was. And this is not art, This is not art. So like we say that, oh, this is art because art is something you don't want to measure. I'm not saying cannot measure, but you don't want to because you really want to enjoy the visual content, experiential content of it, but subjective. But quantitatively, architecture is so brilliant. And this is where it brings about the sign that quantitatively, this is so much making sense to life. How much of life can you change? Just a project, one single mall, which we do often in a life, which goes by, let's say, 15 years or so, it can impact more than, let's say, 6 Kolkatans' life. Chota Kolkata. 6 Kolkata can be influenced by one project. So how important was City Center 1 for Charles Correa to make that thing? He has revised his design 19 to 20 times from 2 boxes to multiple boxes. So when I was given the job to add the tram, and that was like, what will happen? So I said, little patina story of old thing coming down and a tram, Kolkata stores. And then and the client said, you buy, if it fails, you won't run it. I said, okay, what will happen if it fails? Let it be curiosity. Let it be jungle. Let it be T junction. The first time when we do the T junction, it was like, nukkad mein cha bechte na. चाय वाला बन के दिखा. So architect को चाय वाला भी बनना पड़ा. You have to become a chai wala also. Are you understanding what I'm saying? But what happened is you gave birth to a T junction, which is now over 90 outlets in the country. I think more than that. 90.
I think Vivek, Nukkar is such an important element, in most of the things that we do, because we go beyond, just buildings. I mean, our job is such that, whenever we get a brief, it's just not a single building. We have to build multiple buildings. And these things that, like Nukkars and Chaurahas, all those things that is there, Indian context is something that, is directly applicable. If you do it, it brings life to it. I think, Manisha, what Vivek has very nicely done in his oral discourse is given.
Shubhendu, I just take one more minute.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
One more point. What I was trying to tell you is that if you really want to build a string of career, I can know that there's a time and then you always flush with time. I can understand. But one thing is, school experience, college experience, and then the profession. This has to be also linked on a larger sphere for a university who's teaching.
Absolutely.
So kids shall be taken down to trips to the Indian cities, towns, nukkars, places out of Kolkata, out of in the south, east, etc. Show them what's so brilliant part of it. They will start appreciating and then start seeing those details. Otherwise, we will always see architecture as massing. The biggest problem happens is we forget to see details. Indian architecture is about enjoying details. I'm not criticizing what Le Corbusier left, but okay. What I'm saying is the detailing of architecture, which increases our multi-sensory experience, which makes us good human being, healthy human being. This is the one big take that you have to know. Indian architecture was making healthy, biologically healthy human beings, intelligent civilizations. Flatter buildings give birth to flatter civilizations. Intricate, detailed buildings give intricate, detailed civilization. Neurosensitive growth happens over the time. That's all. Now Shubhendu, please go ahead. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I was just trying to say that, what you've very nicely done is, you've given most of the participants today an overview of the various, aspects of a profession, and one has a choice, because you covered almost, so many things. You talked about somebody, taking the fun side of things and becoming a cartoonist, somebody getting into details, which would probably evolve into, designing products, and, you talked about, giving your client, an entire idea about, what kind of money is going to make out of it in a year. I think that's amazing because, you see that so many things that has to be done, when we are addressing, the requirements and the needs of your clients. So I think, this has been a very, fruitful session, Manisha, I think, because, we've understood so many things from these. I think there are some questions. I think there's only one question.
I would like to, if I may.
Yeah, Manisha, I think, if you can add.
Before you take up very few minutes, I just wanted to make it a lighter note that, if myself, Vivek and Shubhendu is in a class, I'm sure the syllabus will not get completed because we will keep on discussing and we will keep on discussing. And I don't understand also for a creative subject like architecture, where it is important to learn, observe, engage. That's why I have started this experiment of making our School of Architecture. As a byline, I have written to our logo, cities are our laboratories. You might contest why only cities. It includes in idea. It's actually we should look around and engage ourselves. That's the biggest learning waiting to happen to us. And I think that, as Rathore, as Vivek has said again and again, that it should start from the beginning. It should start from the school level to the college level, and that's how you kind of build ownership with your place. Try to differentiate what is good to me, to us, to the state, to the nation, and be more contextual and appropriate, where we will be trying to seek our future, the future of our city, the future of our nation, the future of our world. And in this globalized world and lockdown and networking, I think it has even opened up the opportunity. It has even opened up the opportunity of connecting, of knowing other places. And I get amazed how similar basic tenets of life and living exist across the globe. And then I think we often unknowingly fake ourselves. And that is, I think, a realization that I, at my age of 54, is increasingly happening. So the learning, I also equally hate the word career. But it is one might hate it, but there are a lot of people who need a career to do other things. I don't blame the word career, therefore. And you need to have a career to look after your parents. That could be the necessity. And he or she could be really passionate about studying architecture or any creative design. So, though I don't like it, I accept it. So there are a lot of things which you have to trade off, which you have to engage, disengage. And I think syllabus is a piece of paper, but what we would like to try and do with our powers as a teacher is that the syllabus can remain. We can take the spirit of the syllabus and we would like to share and exchange with our receptive students of how to see a place and even learn from them as well. I think that is something which will be a very engaging thing while teaching, which I and my colleagues, I will try to speak more in our school. I would like to have known specifically, personally, but it's not possible to know. So therefore, I would like to hear more on Nandini and Rathore, where they think they should have done more in this whole structured courses that we run in our countries even today. And where do you think could be a beautiful thing? Very briefly though, because we're running short of time. And secondly is I would like to hear from participants and from Mrs. Chatterjee that how about experimenting and knowing that which student has got which knack towards which directions, whether it's for the arts or whether it's for the science or whether it's for the cosmos or whether it's for games, whether we in the school as a custodian of school education, whether we can start categorizing and looking their wishes and dreams and channel those visions and dreams towards a more, towards making their passion into their profession. I borrow the word from Rathore. And I would like to hear the next 15, 20 minutes, which makes it a 1.5 hour program, is questions from people who are unvideoing themselves. I would like to hear and see them. I request once again to put your video on. And that what makes you take up architecture, whether it's a kind of a past bent that you had and now that you're free, or is it being thrust upon you? You wanted to do something else. That will be a very interesting discourse. It may come out in your deliberation, it may not. So I would like Rita, Dr. Chatterjee to respond to what I said and how you channelize a student's dreams towards higher ed.
What is happening now across all boards, specifically in the central board, the curriculum or the teaching learning exchange as that happens in the classroom, we are not concentrating so much on the curriculum as on the concept of it. So what happens whilst we are teaching, we do a lot of experiential learning, experiential teaching to know exactly what is the knack of the child. And once we get to know, accordingly, we do channelize them with the, say, physical education teacher or with the swimming instructor accordingly. So that is being done. But you know what is actually true for children who want to go into the sciences, once they know that they have to crack it in physics and chemistry and mathematics, that becomes a primary concern over any other fun of learning. So
Yes.
once they do that, then, you know, we next talk to them about the various career options that they may have. There are children, as you know, Monish, very well, there are children who go into drama and theater, etc. And it's all very fine. But as long as, you know, you are able to garner respect towards yourself from what you're doing, it's all right. It's absolutely
Right.
all right. So what our main intention is to ensure that every child becomes productive to himself or herself. That is very, very important. And to do that,
Right.
teachers today are all teaching. You know, we've been given the joy of learning exercise, and they're all teaching in that mode to ensure that the child is enjoying whilst learning. So it's no more rote learning, because the
Right.
methods have changed. And
Right.
we are all, you know, when we are putting forth the questionnaire to the students during the it's no more on the information level. The question that we put out is aimed to see how the child has been able to synthesize the knowledge that has been given to him in the class, what he makes of it in real life. That is more important. So I mean, that's what we are doing, and it's nice. But you know, one concern remains in my mind, which is that when we have career counseling, when we have parents talking to us, it's invariably আমার ছেলে আমার মেয়ে ডাক্তার হবে, ইঞ্জিনিয়ার হবে, MBA পড়বে, কিন্তু আর্কিটেক্ট হবে সেটা খুব একটা আসে না. This has to come out.
Right.
That there is so much fun in architecture, that there's so
Right.
much fun in architecture, that you can create, that you can live your creation is something
Right.
so fantastic.
Right.
So that
I
has
see.
to come out.
Yes, fantastic. I see Shayandeepa Non Panda. I recall her name because she just took admission for this year to our school. Shayandeepa, are you there? Can you put your video on?
Yes, I'm there. Good evening, everybody. But my
Shayandeepa,
network
are you
connection is very
are you in
poor.
sync with this conversation and discussion?
Yes,
I know that you just joined us.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can't see you though.
So my network connection is very poor. So
All
I don't.
students' network connection remains very poor.
Yes, sir.
Particularly during online classes, you know, I have seen, you know, most of the students say that, sir, my network connection is not so good. You know, that's one of the first prerequisite of the 21st century now, that you have to have a very good network connection.
Now I know what to tell to my clients also.
Yeah, Shayandeepa? Shayandeepa,
Yes, sir. Yes.
are you there? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us why did you join architecture?
So since classes 11 and 12, each and every of my students were already planning to give their joint entrance examinations and NEET and everything. So I was still confused because I didn't want to do any of those things. I still took part in many of the institutions, took admission, but still I wasn't interested in any of these. But after a while, I got interested in interior designing, architecture and everything. So I researched about architecture and all, and I got interested in this field. And as a result,
Wonderful. Wonderful. And you're from which school, Shayandeepa?
I'm from the Assembly of Gotchet School, Tollygunge.
Right, right. And are you the only student who dreamt of doing architecture in your class?
Yes, from my batch, I'm the only one who have so
Right.
far. Yes, sir.
So people don't dream to become architect in bulk. Like people dream to do computer science.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Why do you think it's that way?
Sir, I guess sometimes it's the parental pressure which the students go through and the peer pressure
Right.
also.
Right. Great. Welcome. I welcome you in particular. That
you,
I welcome your parents as well.
Thank you.
Because
Mm.
you could follow what you dream. And I'm sure your passion will merge with whatever you work on in the future. And we'll try our best to handhold you in this journey. Yes, Raj.
Yeah. To make it further, let be now. I think we should kind of make it more precipitating, as I said. No, what we can do, what can be done, is to inspire the school students to understand why they should do architecture, if at all they want to do. What is the best way to do is the society in which they're living. We can identify, let's say, 30 buildings or so, and make a very sensitive, very interesting a video. If the architect can join in, fine. Otherwise, as an observer, this can be an initiative taken by, let's say, SNU, your or
Yes.
university, and or collaborated between 2 or 3 schools or whatsoever. That can be seen how to do it, or maybe
Right.
the architects can share with their video files, and that can be explained how the contributive role which the guy has played. The best thing that can inspire people, it's not money. They made a fantastic research, and they've concluded it's not money.
Yeah.
And in fact, it is, even if you want to hold a few people for money, the split, the leave, or the go. That's not money. So it is a bigger role that they want to do it. Ami eta korte parchi, eta korlam. This is made by us. I'm able to change, influence the world around us. I'm able to give a meaning. So how does a building grew with the kid, or the big role with the building is playing in his or her society, the student society? He will now start seeing the building like that. For example, how does this one city center is influencing, or let's say, how does any let's say Science City is a building. Okay, how many people did inspire? What did people do? Maybe 1 or 2 of them have got so much inspired that they've gone to NASA.
Right.
You can actually make the threshold of the world, because what they're seeing is architecture of the world around them, essentially driven by spaces. So let's take, if we can do, and then that can be a matrix which can be shared with the schools.
Yes.
They can show them.
We'll have to do it, Vivek. You come back, you travel less in the next week, and we'll.
I can provide you 5 buildings.
Yes.
Right from a garbage dump, like a story of Swabhumi, Pravida has worked, Pathoda was there. So many people
Right.
did layers of working, and finally lands up like this on a garbage dump. And how much it is doing? How many people got engaged?
Fantastic.
Okay, so how many people job has been given? A building industry is one of the largest industry. Okay, of contribution, of making contribution. So many people. Just to tell you, after COVID, when real estate or building industry construction opened up, that was one of the biggest industry which was opened up for the employment of the people around us.
Right. Right.
How many students went to school because of that?
Right.
So I can contribute, let's say, 3 films.
Right.
I will get the 3 films done, and I will provide for Kolkata. At least Kolkata I will give it to you. That's my commitment that I can.
We can do it together. We can do it
Yeah.
together. We can invite other schools, etc. And
I'm sure that Shubhendu will also inspire more things like this, and I will ask people like Arvind and other people also to give at least 3 so that we can have a sample of at least 15 to start with.
Yes.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think we should meet up, more often, in these sessions. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can take questions if there is any.
Yeah, I think Manishta, I think we are almost out of time. So I think there's only one question which Nandini should answer, because it's more or less directed to Jaideep and Nandini.
Right.
Why did they take up architecture and what are they doing now? So Nandini, if you can shortly answer this. And then I think over to Inadi and Manishta, if you can just give us a brief idea about the admission process at SNU for architecture, and then we can just close the session then. Yeah, so Nandini and then Inadi and Manishta.
So I grew up generally with my father. My mother was living outside of India. So my father has a very big impact on my life. And even though he's not a trained architect, he is a very good builder, according to me, because I've seen how well he has catered to all of our needs in the family and how he has built a nice house. So always his concern was to create a very nice space for us to live in within the limits of cost, and also taking into consideration the weather and the area which we were living in. So that kind of inspired me. Like my dad used to take me to the construction site with him, and I used to see how he was working around the things and how he's directing people out there to, like, there was one staircase which he couldn't figure out, like, for a long time how to get it done, because he was obviously not from the profession. So I saw him, break that thing down 3 to 4 times, and he finally built it. And I saw how much, effort it requires, and how much it is a very interesting job. So that kind of inspired me to take up architecture. And then when
You enjoy the tours in your course.
Yes. I was just coming to that. So when I finally joined architecture, and what I think Vivek sir was telling Joydeep, that he should be traveling more. I feel more than the classroom setting, architecture was more taught to me through the places which I have visited. Throughout 5 years, we had 5 trips to different parts of India, and I have seen how there's a total different kind of setup all outside these huge monuments which are there. The actual thing which you see is not inside the monument, I feel. It is outside, how it has built a total different, I would say, a small ecosystem, where you see different kinds of people, and how they have, made their own niche, and how they have, sought out things for themselves. And they're also providing to and contributing to the society in their own way.
Right.
That has taught me a lot. And again, as Manish sir was talking about syllabus, I feel a syllabus should be made to cater to the student and not the other way around.
Absolutely.
A syllabus should be something which is malleable, not something which is rigid, and a student is, beaten up to, fit into that box. So this, in my undergrad days, I have, like, our professors in Amity, they were amazing, because they have given us that freedom to understand, to evolve ourselves in our own way. Like, they used to inspire
So do
us
you
to
think,
read.
it reminded me, 2 weeks ago, we were having a talk by a professor from the head of the department of Liverpool University, who happens to be from Bengal. And we were discussing whether design at the initial stage, in the early years, should be individual or collective. And Liverpool School of Design and Critical Thinking, they actually do group activity as a design in the earlier stage, where the observation is more. You go around Liverpool, around the project that is given to you. And then I think that also makes, do you feel while doing design at the early stage, you had difficulties? It would have been better, it would have been a group work?
I feel when I'm working alone, I'm more free to do something.
Right.
But also at the same time, if I have someone with me, I get to know of ideas which I might not have come up with on my own.
Right.
But Manish sir, if you remember, like we had gone out for some small, I won't say trips, but then case studies when we were doing our different
Peter's
small
trip.
projects.
Yeah, Fort William.
Yeah, so we used to go around and we used to see everything. Like, that was a very important part of my education in architecture.
Observation is very important.
Exactly.
Observation is very
We
important.
used to go on heritage walks. I think you
Yes.
also went with us 2
Yes,
years in a row.
Yes. Should I then kind of say a few words and make it conclude? Yeah, and request Inadi. We are coming to an end. This discussion needs a little time to warm up. it requires a little more time. But
Mr.
there is-
Rathor's talk was,
Fantastic.
I would say it was mesmerizing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Rathor, so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, yeah.
And when are we going to have him at our campus, Manish?
You know, we can have him
Once the students are there, I suppose.
Yes, yes. Once the students are there, definitely. And we would like to have, you know, hear and see the works by our students, which is, there's a significant amount of students which got admitted this year in our course, which
Very
is
good.
very, very heartening for me to see, because
More and more students are getting attracted to
yes,
this domain.
and I would just say a few words. If you please don't confuse. There are colleges which I am seeing writes themselves as architectural engineering. Don't go to them if you are thinking of doing architecture. These are problems that exist in our policy making, which you should bear in mind if you're thinking that you should do architecture. And we'd really look forward to have lovely students who have already decided or have 3-4 years ago that they would do something like architecture. We would embrace them with all sincerity, and we would like to handhold and learn and get their reactions as honest, because we have grown old, we are biased in certain.
But Manish, I would suggest that you should start catching them young.
Yeah.
Maybe from
And the
class
idea of,
6, 7
Vivek
onwards.
doing a little film on these matters will be brilliant, which we can explore, Niradi, along with Vivek and other architects in the city. We can take them to the schools and so on and so forth. So please join architecture. I'm not going to say please join us. I'm going to say please join architecture if you have decided that you will do architecture. We are also one option where we would like to explore the place that we live in. We would like to learn from the place that we live in, and we can think of solutions of our places and contribute in this process towards our place, our nation building. And I think that is very, very calling that I get. And that's why I shifted from a full-fledged practice to a full-fledged academics. And I would like to really, really engage myself with you students and see where we land up, whether we can twist and change a little, be it syllabus or be it method of teaching, be it participatory, be it taking out from the class, as the avant-garde Tagore did 100 years ago in Shantiniketan. He made his classrooms on the open air and set a different norm and paradigm of education. And I see every student passing out from Shantiniketan doing something extraordinary. They may not be working for a company, but they're doing something extraordinary wherever they are. And I think that is the career option that we should be looking forward. And that is the career option that we should aspire. And architecture, as Vivek very nicely said, that it's like a many things. It's like a filter and sieve. You can get into any directions. I know many of my friends who have gone into many directions of filmmaking, advertising, so many other professions. And it's kind of a open, your sky is your limit if you do architecture. So you don't have to bother to get into working for someone else. You can practice on your own. It doesn't take a huge amount of, you can demonstrate what you think is good for the place and the country. So I think that with these words, I request Inadi, who is a great supporter of architecture, and me and the department and the university, of course, what do you end? What do you say when you end?
With a formal vote of thanks. Please don't ask me to give a formal vote of thanks. Thank you so much, everyone. Madam Rita Chatterjee also. We have a few common friends. Ms. Chatterjee must be knowing Mr. Orijit Ghosh. He's a colleague of mine.
Of course, I know him.
He
Definitely.
keeps on talking about you, praising you a lot.
Thank you so much.
So maybe
Thank
we'll meet soon.
Yeah, we'll catch up. Sure.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shubhrandu.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Thank you, Manish.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we can say, let's begin.
Let's begin.
True.
Absolutely.
True.
Absolutely.
No,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I just say something?
Yes, sure.
Mr. Rathore saying, the place is dotted with identity, I think was wonderful. So next
Yes.
time I see clothes hanging out of a building, etc., I remember Mr. Rathore. That was really wonderful. Thank you
And
so much.
Joydeep, it was very reassuring when I heard the word adaptive reuse.
Right.
Because I think we have to do it, because we have to use our resources to the best and convert that. What was viewed as a liability should be viewed as a asset increasingly.
Yeah. And I think we need to reach out to schools. The school seniors need to know that there's so much fun in architecture, and that there are schools
Absolutely.
that are offering children this. So it'd
Yeah.
be nice.
And all good teachers will talk a lot. We'll hardly teach, which is a good thing for the students to know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
so
you.
much. It was great
Bye.
fun being here.
Thank you.